Vanguard International High Dividend Yield ETF, symbol VYMI, seeks to track the performance of the FTSE All-World ex-US High Dividend Yield Index, which measures the investment return of international stocks that are characterized by high dividend yields. The ETF has a dividend yield of 4.77%. Invesco S&P 500 High Dividend Low Volatility ETF, symbol SPHD, seeks to track the performance of the S&P Low Volatility High Dividend Index, which is composed of 50 securities traded on the S&P 500 index that historically have provided high dividend yields in low volatility. The ETF has a dividend yield of 4.92%. Wisdom Tree U.S. Small Cap Dividend Fund, symbol DES, seeks to track the investment results of dividend-paying small-cap companies in the U.S. equity market. The index that DES is designed to track is composed of small-cap companies with strong free cash flow characteristics. The ETF has a dividend yield of 1.34%. FCF International Quality ETF, symbol TTAI, is actively managed and invests in international stocks with strong free cash flow characteristics, seeking to generate long-term returns in excess of the total return of the MSCI All-Country World Index ex-USA with manageable risk. Invesco High Yield Equity Dividend Achievers ETF, symbol PEY, seeks to track the performance of the NASDAQ U.S. Dividend Achievers 50 Index, which is comprised of 50 stocks selected principally on the basis of dividend yield and consistent growth in dividends. The ETF has a dividend yield of 5.11%. The Schwab U.S. Dividend Equity ETF, symbol SCHD, seeks to track the performance of the Dow Jones U.S. Dividend 100 Index, which is composed of high dividend yielding U.S. stocks that have a high record of consistently paying dividends, selected for fundamental strength relative to their peers based on financial ratios. The ETF has a dividend yield of 2.97%. The Fidelity High Dividend ETF, symbol FDVV, seeks to provide investment returns that correspond before fees and expenses generally to the performance of the Fidelity Core Dividend Index, which is designed to reflect the performance of large and mid-capitalization dividend-paying companies that are expected to continue to pay and grow their dividends over time. The ETF has a dividend yield of 3.47%. The Vanguard High Dividend Yield ETF, symbol VYM, seeks to track the performance of the FTSE High Dividend Yield Index, which measures the investment return of common stocks of companies characterized by high dividend yields. The ETF has a dividend yield of 2.98%. The Wisdom Tree U.S. Large Cap Dividend Fund, symbol DLN, seeks to track the investment results of large-cap dividend-paying companies in the U.S. equity market as measured by the Wisdom Tree U.S. Large-Cap Dividend Index, which is comprised primarily of large-cap U.S. common stocks with at least $2 billion in market capitalization and that pay regular cash dividends on shares traded on U.S. exchanges. The ETF has a dividend yield of 2.89%. The ProShares S&P Dividend Aristocrats ETF, symbol NOBL, seeks investment results that correspond generally to the price and yield performance before fees and expenses of the S&P 500 Dividend Aristocrats Index, which measures the performance of S&P 500 companies that have increased dividends every year for the last 25 consecutive years. The ETF has a dividend yield of 1.96%. Hey, thanks for watching. Please remember to like and subscribe and ring that notification bell to keep up with our latest videos. And as always, happy investing!